Hello, I'm Dr. Catherine Nall. I'm Senior Lecturer in Medieval Literature in the Department of English at Royal Holloway. And today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about The Wife of Bath's Tale and its relation to different genres and different narratives. Now, The Wife of Bath's Tale is, of course, an Arthurian romance. It's set in the old days of Arthur. And it's the only actual example of Arthurian romance that Chaucer wrote. He was attracted to romance in other of his texts, in other of the Canterbury Tales as a genre, but he only wrote the one Arthurian romance, which he then assigned to the Wife of Bath. Now, it's quite a common convention of romance for it to open with some kind of juxtaposition between the now of the text and the past that it narrates. So often you'll have things that will be, love in the old days was like this, it's not like that now. Now, Chaucer takes that quite common convention of romance, but he renders it specific to the tale and its narrator and the frame of the Canterbury Tales. So the Wife of Bath tells us that in Arthur's days, the whole land was fulfilled of fairy. It was full of the supernatural and the fairy world. But the presence of friars has basically meant that the fairies have all been driven out. Where the elf used to walk, now the friar walks. She tells us that friars are as thick as motors in the sunbeam, so as thick as specks of dust in the sunbeam. And she goes on to describe how they're blessing a hallas, chambres, kitcheners, borers, cities, burrs, castles, heatoras, thropers, banners, shipneys, deires. This marketh that there be no fairies. Now, I think the use of a syndeton there really helps to communicate that sense that they are everywhere. These friars get into every single space. And it does it much more effectively, I think, than just saying friars are everywhere. But at the same time, this moment, this digressive moment from the Wife of Bath, actually means that she's actually now at this point engaging in a type of anti-Fraternal satire. So these satirical attacks on the friars, which were also a very popular mode of writing in the 14th century. And indeed, she's actually picking up on some of the mainstays of that kind of anti-Fraternal satire. So that idea of friars being as thick as specks of dust in the sunlight, well, friars are often likened in this kind of writing to things like flies or to bees. Chaucer's contemporary, William Langland, has a figure called the friar who's given the name Sir Penetrans Domus, so the penetrating of the home. So what Chaucer does here then is to combine that quite conventional thing of romance, that juxtaposition of the past and now, but he renders it kind of sharply pointed in this moment because it's part of the Wife of Bath's attack on the friar, and it contributes to the roadside drama of the Canterbury Tales. Now, the Wife of Bath's Tale is also, of course, an example of the Loathly lady tale type. And this is a type of text that we have other versions of in Middle English from the Middle Ages. And I think it's quite useful to think about those different versions in order to get a sense really about what is distinctive in Chaucer's version. And there are two in particular I want to focus on. One is known as The Wedding of Sir Gawain and Dame Rignail. So it features Sir Gawain, Arthur's nephew, one of the key knights of the Arthurian world, and his marriage to the Loathly lady. The other is called The Tale of Sir Florent, and it forms part of the Confessio Amantis, a collection of tales written by John Gower, Chaucer's friend and contemporary. Now, in both of those versions, in the Gawain romance and in The Tale of Sir Florent, it follows a similar pattern. They have the quest to find what women most desire. They get the answer in return for marrying the Loathly lady. On the wedding night, they're given a choice. Will they have her in the future beautiful by day but ugly by night, or ugly by day and beautiful by night? So it's a choice really between whether they're going to prioritise private desire, private satisfaction and fulfilment, or their public reputations, and they hand the sovereignty over to the Loathly lady. They allow her to make the choice. Then she magically has been transformed, and it turns out that this was all an enchantment that was placed on her by her stepmother. So you've got that evil stepmother fairy tale trope coming in there. So that's how they work in these other versions, but Chaucer, I think, makes a number of important contributions to that type of tale. First of all, in Chaucer's version, neither the knight nor the loathly lady, in fact she's only ever called the old woman, the old wife in Chaucer's version, are named. They're not given names. Secondly, he makes the particular action of the knight the crime of rape, and therefore the connection between the crime and the punishment is clearer. He committed rape, he has to now go and find out what it is that women most desire. Thirdly, he doesn't give any description of the loathliness of the loathly lady. Now, for these other writers I've been mentioning, they devote quite a lot of lines to describing just how hideous she was. They clearly really enjoy doing this. Chaucer just says, "A fouler wicked no man made a visa." You couldn't imagine or describe a fouler creature. So he uses here the inexpressibility topos in order to describe just how ugly she is. Now, romance is full of these kinds of inexpressibility topos moments, but they're usually, of course, used to describe the beauty of the heroine. Chaucer here inverts it to describe the loathliness of the old woman. The fourth thing that Chaucer does here is to actually make the knight's reservation, his hesitation on his wedding night, not just to do with how ugly she is, but also to do with her social status. It's the fact that she is come of so low a kinder that is part of the thing that is making the knight toss and turn in bed in distress. Now, this allows Chaucer to give the old woman a speech in which she redefines what gentilessa is. Gentilessa, the Middle English word which means both nobility of rank, so status, but also nobility of character. Now, this speech that the old woman gives actually comprises a quarter of the length of the tale, so it's 100 lines long, so it's clearly meant to be taken seriously. And the old woman, in her arguments, basically detaches the quality of gentilessa as nobility of rank from gentilessa as nobility of character. Now, we've already kind of had that interrogated, haven't we, by the romance, because, after all, we have a knight who commits the crime of rape. But then in her speech, she basically makes it clear that they do not necessarily reside in the same person. He who is noble of status is not necessarily noble of character. The next thing that Chaucer does, which I think is important, is that he changes the nature of the choice that the knight has to make. Will he have her ugly, old, and faithful, submissive, obedient, or will he have her beautiful, young, and by implication likely to be unfaithful? And finally, unlike in those other versions where it's a curse that's put on the loathly lady, in this instance there's no statement of any kind of external factor, and the implication there is that she herself can self-transform, that she can shapeshift.